Hello, Frank Lloyd Wright fans, organic architecture fans, fans of modern architecture. I'm Colin Slace, your host again for these presentations on Frank Lloyd Wright and organic architecture. And today we are going to visit the David and Gladys Wright House in Phoenix, Arizona. I was one of many people a few years ago to help save this house from demolition. We went to a lot of committee meetings, a lot of city hearings. It was a large effort that went into saving that house. The house was sold from the Wright family to someone at that time, a developer who was going to tear down the house and build a new development of 2 or 3 houses or so. And of course, we couldn't let that happen. So we worked with Mayor Greg Stanton at the time and many other people to help save the house. And fortunately, we were able to do that. And so it's in new ownership now. So during that time, the house before, I think the house had gone, I think when it was for sale, we had the opportunity, my wife and I and several other people, to visit the house, tour it. And so I took some pictures during that time and wanted to share these with you and kind of do a photo tour of the house. So like always, like to just give you some very basic information, which in this house I have very little of. The client was David and Gladys Wright. David Wright was Frank Lloyd Wright's son from his first marriage. It is a 2-story house, although really the lower story is the carport, some storage, and a ramp up to the 2nd floor, where the main level of the house has all the rooms, living, dining, kitchen, bedrooms. So you basically live on the 2nd floor. You go up the ramp, the circular ramp, which you'll see. I don't know the square footage. I've been unable to find that number. I'm guessing that it's approximately around 1,900 square feet, give or take, based on other Frank Lloyd Wright plans that I do know the square footage of. It was built in 1950, and the main materials were concrete block because David Wright was in the concrete block business, so it seemed appropriate to use that material. Concrete, glass, and red Philippine mahogany. As usual, we always start with the site. In this case, somewhat of a suburban lot in a neighborhood, has views of Camelback Mountain out this way. And so here's the house here. Here's this ramp you go up to basically living on the 2nd floor. Driveway is here. There's actually a low, or there was at the time, there was a low screen wall, concrete block screen wall that came out from the house toward the street here that Mr. Wright added after the design was finished. I think the story is that Pedro Guerrero, the photographer, took a photograph of the house, and Wright felt that the house needed this wall to keep the house from appearing to spin and to kind of ground the house. So there's that extension wall. And then the house kind of surrounds a courtyard here with a pool. And then there is a guest house here that was designed by architect John Howe, one of Wright's apprentices. But here's the main street here, and then basically just lots, residential plots kind of surrounding the house. Here's a photograph by Pedro Guerrero from his book, Picturing Wright, which I had the privilege of attending the grand opening of the Winona Terrace Civic Center in Madison, Wisconsin, and Pedro was there signing his book. So I got his signature, got his autograph in the book. But here's what the site looked like in 1950 or so. So, a lot different. There was an orange grove in this area, but here's the mountains back here. And then there's actually the view of Camelback Mountain is kind of to the left of this picture. But at that time, you can see much more of a rural lot than it is now. But Wright raises the house up off the ground to get the house up off the hot desert floor, out of the dust, keep it free and clear of scorpions and snakes and things. Floor plan of the house. So you actually pull in under the carport, which is underneath the bedrooms here and underneath this living area. There's these concrete block piers here that go down to the ground, support the house above, pull into a carport, and then you go up a ramp here, exterior ramp, into the foyer or main entry of the house. And then you have the workspace, Wright's other term for the kitchen, then living and dining, and then you have the gallery here to the bedrooms, ending in the master bedroom or the primary bedroom wing here with its own fireplace in the living room, a small balcony here, and then this courtyard. Here's this central point from which radiate these grid lines. Wright always used a modular grid for proportion, for scale, and then there is a pool here, and it's a complete circular plan reminiscent of the Guggenheim Museum. So from the exterior, here's that ramp up the house, up the ramp to the main entry area door here. Taller ceiling area, living, dining. Here's the workspace or the kitchen area here. Here's that fireplace. And then the bedroom wing terminating in the master bedroom wing, which cantilevers out from this fireplace pier. There's a lot of steel and concrete in there, cantilevering this out. Again, all of the windows to allow for the view. Metal roof, at which I think originally at one time the metal roof was blue to blend with the sky. And then again, just this basic concrete block, standard gray concrete block material. Again, another photograph from the perimeter. Here's the bedroom walls, balcony running along the bedrooms here, which I think you can see right here in the floor plan. This balcony runs all the way around. So each bedroom has French doors out onto a balcony, raised up off the ground, like I said, so that you could have Wright considered the orange grove at the time, the lawn. And so he raised you up to the second floor so that you could look out over the lawn of the orange grove. Bougainvillea here, vines. I think those have since been removed. But again, just that blending of nature with the architecture coming up the ramp. You can see parking area through here. Here's Camelback Mountain. So that's where the view is geared toward. And again, at one time, this was all orange grove trees here. At one time too, I think there was a planter that went parallel with the ramp, up the ramp, but I think that's since been removed. I think they had some cracking and some leaking problems, just didn't function too well. Then there's this patterned concrete block, concrete here. Again, kind of always expressing the motif of the design, in this case, the circle or the half circle. We're up almost at the top of the ramp now. The front entry is to our right. Here's the pool area. So we went up the ramp here, circling around pool area. This is that primary bedroom fireplace, primary bedroom cantilevering out here, gallery of bedrooms here. Now you can see how the house is up off the ground, allowing breezes to flow through, nature to flow through. Even the circular pavers here. I think the paver in the middle, that's the center of the plan, is marked. So again, the whole plan, Frank Lloyd Wright, organic design, organic architecture, all about the circle. So now everything will be circular or have that circular motif expressed. Again, here we're actually up at the top. There's actually another balcony that wraps around the workspace that goes up to a little roof deck. And we're up there now looking down at the primary bedroom fireplace and wing. Here's the ramp we came up, the pool, the rest of the lot, which again used to be orange grove beyond here at one point. I think there might still be some remnants of that here. The granary. Front door is here to our right. We're back at the ramp. I think the last photograph we were up here somewhere. But again, these stone pavers, the courtyard, the greenery, standard concrete block. As Mr. Wright used to say, he wanted to take this common material out of the gutter, out of the basement. But you can see how everything here curves. And then me at the front door, it's got the infamous red square, which typically means that the house was built according to the plans and followed, maintain the integrity of the design. But again, when you have a circular design, so you'll have a half circle window, half circular motif, circular recessed can lights. So again, that motif will be carried through all the way. So again, remember this, the house was for sale at this point. So a lot of the furniture had been removed. But this is the living room. Here's this Philippine mahogany ceiling, extremely difficult to craft this in these sections on the radius. Here's these half circular windows again, built-in shelving. Again, Mr. Wright's typical built-in banquette, outlet, curved table here. But again, same material inside as out always. And then we'll see this rug here in a couple of slides. This table was original. Again, the circle, we have remnants of the half circle or quarter circle below. Everything integrated, everything unified. And now here from the windows of the living room, looking back at the fireplace with the hob, the kitchen or workspace area, these half circular windows, these French doors that go out onto that small balcony that wraps around the other bedrooms of the house. This lapped Philippine mahogany ceiling was just absolutely beautiful, beautifully done. And this original carpet design by Wright for the house. So again, we have a circular fire grate here, circle motif in the carpet design, everything unified, half circle in the furniture, rounded edges, everything always unified and integrated. Mr. Wright's infamous Cherokee red concrete floors. Again, here's the entry that we came in with closet storage for coats. And then you can get into the workspace through here or through here around the fireplace. Another built-in seating area here. A rounded concrete column or pier here. Extremely difficult to get rounded block like that made today. It would be very, very expensive. And then there's the return air grill here. So integrating the air heating, ventilation, air conditioning into the design. Here's that built-in seating. Here are the French doors. Can't really see it here too well, but the view of Camelback Mountain is through here. Again, a small balcony here. And now we go down the gallery or the hallway. Bedrooms here on the right, the windows in view out through here. Camelback Mountain is out this way. The ramp is here, the pool down here. Again, Mr. Wright always utilizes this gallery hallway area as more than just a hallway, but there's storage underneath here, a shelf here to display objects of art and various personal items, circular lighting, Philippine mahogany, curves everywhere, the red concrete floor. One of the bedrooms. So you come in, again, everything built in. That concrete block is inside and out. Again, as Mr. Wright always used to say, what's inside goes out, and what's outside can and certainly does come in. Headboard here, built-in headboard for the bed. Just like here, the shelf with the rounded corners, the curved corner, the rounded edges. Again, the curves here at the corners, sort of a built-in nightstand. Philippine mahogany again throughout. Philippine mahogany with piano hinge closets. Mr. Wright always used the piano hinge for the continuity of the hinge. I like that design. It provided stability and rigidity to the door. So that was a common characteristic of all of Frank Lloyd Wright's cabinetry. And now in the primary bedroom, which is at the end of that curved wing, another built-in bench seat with fold-down storage below, built in. Again, the windows out to the view. And again, the Philippine mahogany craftsmanship here, extremely difficult to get the angles and the cuts right. Another circular fireplace here in the primary bedroom with a custom circular fire grate. No fire brick here. Mr. Wright always liked the black char of the fireplace that it was used. I think maybe the block here is so thick that perhaps the heat didn't affect it, but usually you'd have fire brick, some kind of special treated brick there. Again, here was the entry to the house. We've wrapped all the way around in a circular fashion now here to the primary bedroom and this circular concrete block fireplace. We entered through here. Again, built-in storage, Philippine mahogany, built-in headboard, concrete block, this intricately cut Philippine mahogany ceiling. I think they had a little bit of a leak problem here that needed to be addressed. But again, the red concrete floors, Mr. Wright always did throughout, Cherokee red. So to summarize, again, there's always a sense of shelter, which Frank Lloyd Wright considered the main purpose of architecture. There's always a love and respect for nature with a capital N. Of course, nature is the ultimate context within which all buildings exist. Street names, something I always mention on my previous talks. As I have traveled around the country looking at Frank Lloyd Wright buildings, I noticed that there were always the street names that a lot of Wright houses were on always happened to be nature-related names, like Woodchuck Road, Knoll Road, Far Hills Avenue, Woodland Avenue, Forest Avenue, Springbrook Road. I just found it interesting that here is the man who is always associated with nature, and a lot of his homes and buildings ended up being on streets or roads named with some sort of nature base to them in the name. These buildings, especially Mr. Wright's houses, return you to your natural biorhythms. That came from my conversation with Donna Penfield, the daughter-in-law of Lou Penfield of the Penfield House in Willoughby Hills, Ohio. And she and I had a nice conversation. And I asked her, what was it about Frank Lloyd Wright houses that were so exhilarating, so popular, so positively revered? And she said, because he returns you to your natural biorhythms. No separation from the elements. Mr. Wright said, I never wanted to be separated from the elements. So he's always connecting you with the outdoors, with nature, rain, snow, sun, always a connection between the two. This is a supremely human or humane architecture that Mr. Wright represented and created. Organic architecture is about the human being. It's about the proportion and the scale of the human being. That's why most of, if not all of Mr. Wright's buildings are brought down in scale. Of course, to his scale at 5 feet, 8.5 inches, which might be stretching it as far as his height went. But that's what, is what is so known about Frank Lloyd Wright and the architecture that he represented was this human scale. You don't see a lot of that today. You see a lot of grandiose scale, a lot of tall ceilings, where the human being seems less significant. Mr. Wright said that a building should be a grace to its site rather than a disgrace. So the building should appear, as he also used to say, that it belonged where you saw it standing, and then it grew out of its site, that it always looked like it belonged where you saw it. All of Mr. Wright's buildings were basically alternate universes. They were places of possibility, beauty, privacy, peace, space, and comfort. When you enter a Frank Lloyd Wright building, every single time you leave the rest of the world behind, all of its troubles, all of its ugliness, and you enter this realm of beauty. I was just finished reading 2 books now about Frank Lloyd Wright. One was from Lonnie Loveness called Growing Up Right, and about the Donald Loveness estate, the Loveness house in Minnesota. And then I just read Edgar Taffel's Apprentice to Genius. And in those books, I learned that, Mr. Wright said that he tried to create beauty wherever they were, whether it was Spring Green, Wisconsin, Taliesin West and Scottsdale, or the Plaza Hotel in New York City, where Wright had a place for a time for a construction of the Guggenheim Museum, that even that he remodeled, of course, to kind of meet his wishes. These buildings, and especially this house, are a complete work of art, where part is to whole as whole is to part. And man, I can't tell you how many times we argued that point to the City of Phoenix committees and these boards and these hearings that we had. We all got up and spoke at the podium and said, you cannot, one of the many reasons you cannot tear this house down is because it is a work of art. I mean, I think I made the point that this was the Rodin, this was, a Michelangelo sculpture, and to destroy it would be a huge, devastating blemish to the city. So thank God they listened, and it exists today. Obviously, Wright's architecture becomes a part of the landscape and of the environment. It's completely connected to the site, to the climate, to the view, to the foliage, to the flora and fauna, as Mr. Wright used to say. This house again represents, I think, really well the free, democratic individual, unconstrained by styles. I mean, this house creates its own style. Obviously, Mr. Wright was never bound by styles, colonial, Georgian, classical. He created an architecture of the time, for the client, for the material, for the needs, in a creative way that Mr. Wright thought represented the United States of America, a free, democratic, individualistic, a country of free, creative individuals. And you can see from the design of this house, I think mainly that circular design is unlike any other house I've ever seen. The guest books not in this house in particular, but in many of the houses that you visit or can stay the night in that are for rent, are full of praise and appreciation from everybody for Frank Lloyd Wright's buildings. And I bring that up because, there is something about Mr. Wright's architecture that just appeals to so many people. I think it appeals to some common emotion that is within all of us. Mr. Wright was just the best. That's why he was the world's greatest architect of all time, because he really understood how to connect the human being with nature. And he was the best in the world at it. These houses have a spiritual quality about them. They have a simplicity. Mr. Wright used to use the term to build a thoroughbred. He liked limiting the material palette and using that material throughout the entire project. That helped provide the continuity and the integrity of the design inside and out. So we have the red Cherokee red concrete floors outside coming inside. We have the concrete block outside coming inside, the Philippine mahogany outside coming inside. Always that connection, those few materials, glass, just 4 or 5 materials make up the entire design. Mr. Wright hated paint. He hated applique. He hated phony, fake, faux, anything. He wanted the material to reveal itself truthfully, honestly, and visibly. And then I always like to end with the Truth Against the World award speech. In the book, Truth Against the World, there is a speech given by Ralph Walker that is a speech for the gold medal presentation, an award to Frank Lloyd Wright, where Ralph Walker says to Mr. Wright, "You design your buildings as if they were to take their place in a happier world, one of light, of grace, of gaiety, and for human beings who are not burdened with fear, for humans who live in a world where what seems possible is actually so, and where the pioneer concept of democracy seems a reality. All your life, you have denied the minimum and reached for the stars. A free man in a free land, you have asked a drab society to compromise with you on the basis of your ideals." And next time, stay tuned for my next presentation on Frank Lloyd Wright's Brandis residence in Sammamish, Washington. Thank you all again, and we will see you then. Bye-bye.